Hey everyone, this is Dean for Paranormal Pickers. Just getting ready for our next Paranormal Picker adventure. Come on, join me.
All right, so up there it says live. Hey everyone, this is Dean, Paranormal Pickers. Over here is Dale Kaczmarek from Ghost Research Society. Welcome on another edition of Paranormal Pickers. I know we had a half a show last week, but hopefully as things get better, um, Nick's situation is getting better. He actually got a new puppy dog, so I can't wait to hear about that. About two dogs running away from him now, and so that's getting better. And we'll probably be going back to Tuesday night because his shift changed. So that should be better for us anyway. So I'm just pulling up the information here. So, welcome, Dale. Thanks for joining me tonight. If you could give a quick introduction about, like you need an introduction, but give the folks who just joined in
Sure,
a little bit about yourself.
sure. I've been involved in paranormal since 1975, so I'm actually going on my 47th year of
That's crazy.
ghost hunting in the Chicagoland area. And during that time, I've investigated probably pretty close to 4,000 different cases. Sometimes we go back and repeats. Sometimes we do private investigations, public investigations. I've been president of the Ghost Research Society since 1982. I worked for 5 years as a research assistant to what was then called the Ghost Trackers Club, which we founded back in 1977. It's still one of the longest running groups in America. I mean, there are some that are obviously more, been around longer than me. The American Society of Psychic Research, the J.B. Rhine Institute, the British Society for Psychic Research, the Edgar Casey Foundation, things of that nature. But as far as just a normal, everyday, walk of the mill group that I founded, with Martin B. Ricardo back in 1977, it's still one of the longest running groups in America, surely surely here in Illinois.
I think you should change your name to Ghost Research Kingdom at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, we do a lot of private and public investigations. We have a lot of state-of-the-art equipment. I have about $16,000 worth of ghost hunting gear. I'm constantly adding on more pieces along the way. So a lot of it I don't use, unfortunately, because there's so much of it. So my wife told me, don't buy anymore because you don't use what you have now. So I'm going to have to start going back and using some of my old gear. But I got a lot of real vintage stuff that I bought from digital dowsing and so forth. So I just really enjoyed doing what I'm doing. And as long as I'm sharp still up here, I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, I don't have the luxury of spending that much money, and over the course of time, I'm sure that added up into your arsenal of paranormal equipment. But which brings up tonight's show. We're going to be talking about one of the pieces of equipment that I use, and I don't use too many. I like to use the same thing in every place that I go to, because it's kind of like an extension of my arm, and I learn it, and I learn what it does and learn what it does and see what it does and see if it has anything to do with what we're actually trying to research, and that's locate spirit and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how the equipment that we're going to talk about tonight unfolds throughout the night. And it is the Ovilus III. But I can't go without saying, well, actually, look what I got yesterday. I got one of those Fitbit watches now.
Cool.
I don't even wear stuff. I haven't wore a watch since the third grade. It feels weird. Plus I got to sleep with it now. Man. Oh, Ron's out there. Ron says hi.
Yeah, right.
So tonight episode is strength. The strength card. So you can see it's a lion, female with the flower wreath, different colors. So strength. So basically this card represents inner strength, And I think that's what, well, you have inner strength to all the 47 years that you've been doing this, your strength to continue and to find out what you're, uncovering, represents mastering raw emotions in order to bring calm to yourself or a situation. It is similar to the Chariot card in that it represents overcoming challenges. So I know we've all overcome challenges in our life, but it says mastering raw emotions in order to bring calm to yourself. Have you ever found yourself in a situation, Dal, where you actually had to step out of a haunted place and just collect yourself and say, let me regroup my own thoughts here because it just seems like this is overpowering?
Oh, yeah. It's happened several times when I was going to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, and I think you've been to Bachelor's Grove several times now. Now, I will say, like everybody, I'll make it very short, but like everybody, I went out there a couple times after dark because it's kind of cool to be out there after dark to see because when you have the daytime and people running through there, it kind of disrupts you. So there were a couple of instances when I was going down the trail, and this was long before they really started policing the area. This is probably in the early 1980s or so. And so I was like walking down the trail, and I get about halfway down the trail. I'm by myself, which is kind of crazy. You never should do investigating by yourself. But anyway, walking about halfway down the trail, all of a sudden I go, whoa, wait a second. I really don't think I want to go any further.
Well,
and I just turned around and I left. And that happened at least twice there. Now, if you've been there, obviously, it can be kind of peaceful. A lot of people say it's peaceful, but there have been things that have happened in the past that people have been seeing for decades. So, yeah, I would say Bachelor's Grove was one place that I had that feeling. Another place, very quickly, was at the Joplin Spook Light Road in Joplin, Missouri. There were a couple of times. There was one time that I literally walked into what I best describe as a zone of fear. I would walk in, have an anxiety attack, walk back a few steps, and I'm fine. And it happened several times. I've went back there since several times. It's just not there anymore. So it's really kind of strange.
The zone of fear. I'm writing that down because I want to quote you on. Is that one of your made-up quotes here? Because I like that.
No, actually, I stole that from John Keel.
Okay. Well, I like it. Zone of fear. I like that.
John Keel wrote in the Mothman Prophecies. He experienced the exact same thing at the TNT factory. He literally walked into an area that was no more than 4x2, had a weird feeling, stepped back, same thing happened. He came back the next day, was gone. Wow. And so I give him the credit for that. I actually met John Keel several times, had a number of my books autographed by him. But that quote is basically from him, but it basically serves a purpose because you really walk into an area where you either fearful or you got an anxiety attack.
Yeah. St. Albans was that for me. I mean, I had asked for protection, went to the corner, separated myself, and just kind of asked for the light to come in me. So St. Albans was like that for me, based off of just the horrible stuff. But I mean, we're going to talk about Pennhurst Asylum, which is, I mean, seriously, there's nothing scarier about a group of rundown, dilapidated buildings known as the Pennhurst State School and Hospital. And we were there at 7:45 in the morning, and it was scary. It's just like in the morning, and we're like, this place is crazy. So I'm going to bring up some pictures, and if you can talk about the Pennhurst Asylum too while I'm bringing those up.
I mean, a place can be scary, 24/7, literally. I mean, that's why, people say, I got to go to Bachelor's Grove at night. Well, why? That very famous photograph we took was taken in broad daylight. So if a place is haunted, it should be haunted pretty much all the time. I mean, if there are spirits there, but this place basically is just a huge complex of buildings. A lot of them are in disrepair. Some were actually torn down. There was the medical building that was gone. But a lot of these buildings have these underground tunnels. Pennsylvania Hall, I believe, which was a shorter tunnel, and they had these longer tunnels underneath there.
That's one of the tunnels there.
Absolutely.
That leads down into the tunnels. Now, this is where, these are the buildings. We're going underneath all this stuff. It's like finding a tunnel in the jungle, and then venturing in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, we went down into that tunnel. I don't know if you were with me when it happened, but there was a boarded up door down in that tunnel about halfway down. And we were kind of trying to peer through it and shine our flashlights to see what was back through there. And as we started to walk away, there was a big boom wrap right on that door. And I go, whoa, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Back around, nothing's there. I mean, I didn't see any raccoons or animals or anything like that. So maybe it was just saying, hey, you're kind of eavesdropping here, and just, get out of here. It's your time to leave or something. Of course, it didn't drive me away. I wanted more. Of course, it didn't happen again, but.
Do you think it was a raccoon? I mean, because that was Charlie's place, right? Wasn't that like the guy's name was Charlie, and they're supposed to like make noises or something back there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, it was difficult to see because there was one little tiny hole I was trying to shine my flashlight through, and at the same time looking through, and it was maybe, I don't know, maybe 5 feet off the ground or something like that. If there was a raccoon in there, then he was trapped because I didn't see any way for him to get out, at least in our direction.
Right. Well, you can see how powerful these buildings are, how big they are. This is our group here. And this is the size of the building, but you can see like even it could cave in at any moment, pretty much. I mean, anything could be falling from this building. We're taking our lives into our hands here, people. We're taking our lives in our hands here, trying to find ghosts and spirit. But that's look at that.
The other buildings have a really, really bad shape. They kind of cordoned off, areas that they didn't really think it was too safe. But I think most of the buildings they let us go into are fairly safe. I mean, stuff could still fall. I mean, it's been there since I don't know what, the early 1900s, I believe, is when it was built. And it's been in operation, for not that long, really, as far as buildings go. Because I think it was closed up, I believe, in 1989 or something like that, 1990.
I thought it was the 70s when they did like they did the expose about the conditions of the patients, but it didn't close down right away, did it?
Right. No. Yeah. And that was just an amazing expose, as you say. I mean, showing the poor treatment of the people. This is one of the tunnels, one of the shorter tunnels we were actually in, and we actually got. I had actually talked to one of the people that was walking us through. He was an elderly gentleman, and he said one evening he was closing this place up and just going around making sure nobody was in the complex. And just as he walked out of this, getting ready to walk out of here, somebody said, "Get out." I said, he goes, "Whoa, I was getting out, so I was out of there." Now we were doing, we were using a device. I think it was either, I believe it might have been the Ovilus in phonetic mode, and actually it was the Paratech. It was the Paratech device. It was a Paratech app, and we were asking questions, and all of a sudden the thing said, "Get out." 2 words came through all together, and I go, "Well, wow, that's the same thing that whatever was down here told that tour guide to get out of here before." So eventually we did leave, not right away, because it happened kind of early in our EVP session. So there's obviously some sort of spirit there that doesn't really take too kindly to visitors.
Well, it's their home. If it's their home, get out of my house, basically.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Get out. Be nice if we capture a voice saying, "Get out of my house."
Yeah.
A little more, a couple more words there, spirits. But you did bring up the Ovilus, and this is, so for me, this place, I kept to myself. I walked around, I took pictures, I took it all in. I didn't get a bad vibes about the place. I was just kind of acclimating myself to the place. And when you and I and Mike and Sylvia and Barb or whoever were all down, and Melissa, were down in that tunnel in the main building. Was that the Memphis or something? Your Ovilus did not work. You were trouble getting your Ovilus to work, and I said, well, I have my Ovilus III, and then I broke that out. So one of the strangest things happened that morning. Our Ovilus III device seemed to come alive, basically. A group of us were in a tunnel, as I just said. Yeah, it was the Memphis building. When you hear, after the dictionary mode chimed in, every word that was produced on the screen was at full strength. And when I say that, it's a large energy bar. I believe I have a picture to represent that. Yeah, so let me bring that up so you kind of know what I think it's the energy bar. And I asked Bill Chappell what the big black bar means, and I don't think he answered my question, but anyway.
For those that don't know Bill Chappell, basically he designed all this stuff for digital dowsing.
Yeah. So normally there's little sliver here. It could go up to about 25%, sometimes 50, but never straight across like this. I never seen this happen until Pennhurst. So that's the example. Now I've seen other video on YouTube that someone did in California that had the line, because I was researching to see if anyone else has found out that this is happening with their Ovilus III. And we'll talk about that at the end here and kind of theorize what's going on with that. So all these words coming up again in paranormal, later that evening, it started going away. So as we went towards Gettysburg, and I'll go through that as well. But you got to remember that this device can create speech and text by taking energy levels in the environment, creating speech, nothing more. There's no algorithm, there's nothing. You can't hook this machine up to a computer, and that's why I like it. There are about 2,400 words or something like that. I actually have a list on a spreadsheet in order that they're loaded. That way, if I come across anything like this, I could see if it was next to each other. I put it alphabetical order, so I kind of see what the tool is doing and see if it's the spirit doing it, or are these words meaningful to something? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Again, it's it's the power of suggestion sometimes with these, and you could, share with me like some of the things obviously. You could take a word and say, for example, Dale, when something comes up and says table, oh, are you by the table? You automatically ask your question based off the word. And I kind of like to, and I do that. It's human habit. But you kind of want to establish who you're talking to first, or say, can you say 3 words in a row or something like that, and say, are you, kind of have that communication too, because the words may not mean something to the spirit or whatever we're doing. I know I'm babbling, but
no, not at all. Basically, that's what we try to do when we first, we first turned the Ovilus on. I'll always start in dictionary mode first, which has got like the Ovilus X and the Ovilus PX that I have is like 4,250 words or something like that in there.
Now, is that programmable, that one?
The Ovilus PX is actually programmable. You can actually add more words to it using an RS-232 port.
Yeah, okay.
Via computer and typing it in. But the other one is just whatever the preloaded words are in there. And with the Ovilus X and the PX, because there's no screen on it, they use a little digital text display screen, which then hooks up to the device. And so when a word comes out, below it, it'll say power equals, and it has a number actually after it. So that kind of like, I believe, took the place, I believe, of the bar that was on your Ovilus III. So the higher the number, the more energy is being exerted by the spirit onto the device to pull out the appropriate word.
Okay.
And again, I pulled up the entire list of all the words that are in there again, and I did pretty much the same thing you did. I alphabetized it, but I also looked for patterns that come through as well. You know, some of the other obelisks that I've used, like I have an Ovilus 5, which doesn't say as many words, believe it or not, as the X or the PX. And I think actually is, to my way of thinking, a better device, especially when you use it in phonetic mode, than the Ovilus 5. But I wanted to have one that finally had a little built-in screen, so I don't have to mess with all the cords and wires and everything anymore. But I think basically it has the same principle, because the Ovilus, basically the words are generated by the energy imparted by the spirits onto the device. They can pull out the supposedly the appropriate word to a question that you're asking. And
I'll bring up something that later on happened to the Ovilus III that only has happened that I've known of in Gettysburg. So Ron had said, end of investigation, ask Dale about statement. Do you know what Ron's asking there? End of investigation, ask Dale about statement. Do you make a statement at the end of an investigation?
No.
So maybe he'll be.
Yeah, if you want to be more specific, you know, we'll definitely address your.
So we got some watchers here. We got say hi to Nino out in Rockford, Laura Redmond, Matt Robinson, and I saw John Vanek over here. Thanks for watching, guys. So this here, I'm going to bring up a video of the tunnel Ovilus. I have that on here. Some of these files are going to be long, so hopefully. Oh, he's saying it was Dan at the cemetery.
Okay. Now I know what he's talking about.
Okay. Thanks, Ron.
You want me to say it now real quick, or?
Yeah, sure.
We were at two cemeteries that were back to back, Pine Hill and Maple Hill or Pine Grove or something like that. I can't remember exactly the terminology, but we were on a sidewalk, so we were perfectly legal. We weren't trespassing the cemetery. In fact, we had about 5 cops cars pass us by, and we just waved at them. We were out there with Dan Norville and Larry Eisler III at that time, and we were using a different device. We were using, I believe, the Phasma box at the time, and we were getting ready to close up for that evening, and all of a sudden it says investigation's over. that's what came through on the
Phasma box. That's hilarious.
You're getting ready to leave anyway. Yeah,
we're getting ready to leave. All right, so let me pull up the video here. Okay, so Ovilus session. Oh, I got to pull out my phone here.
Anybody here that wants to communicate, can you tell us your first name?
Right after Dale, did you hear the voice? Was that from upstairs, one of us? All right, I need to listen to my recorder after this.
Uphold.
Uphold, and that black mark is like huge. You can hear it, Dale?
Uphold?
Yep.
Yeah, you just hit the thing, so we gotta turn it off, turn it back on there.
Kind of sounded like it was going in slow motion there.
Uphold, that was like the biggest black bar that I seen on there.
So I just recognized that was the first time I've seen it.
And I didn't capture all the words or say the words verbally.
Can you tell us what they used to use this hallway for?
There's voices upstairs.
Okay.
Answer. They will give you a question.
So again, answered that had the big black line.
What's your name?
Let me switch over there so I can get some more shots. Thank you.
COVID.
Yeah, that's Sylvia back there too, by the way.
Yep.
I mean, it was pretty pitch dark in here too. So
So as that's playing, all these words that came up were uphold, answer, father, knows, mission, jade, length, lark, note, when, and then it actually came up with I'm not, different, and then it says chord,
Father.
and then there was another word that I couldn't make out.
Father. Another
And then-
long black line. I never seen black line on this ever like that.
Ever.
Uphold, Father.
Uphold, answer, father.
it was also hot down there on like.
Oh yeah.
Once more.
You talk about Jesus
And again, this
Christ?
was like 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning now. And that was cool because we were able to stay longer, and it was just supposed to be like a photography thing, but it ended up being a pretty cool investigation. Tim set up some cameras around. We had a pretty good time. I had a pretty good time there.
Yeah. I would like to go back here one day, but do a nighttime.
Oh, definitely. I watched a lot of video of this place just to see if some of these words that I captured matched other investigations that other people were performing.
Moment.
So nose. Also, movie 8, man, reach, and then loop. Loop was a picture that I
Another
kind of showed there.
one black line.
So I'm still freaking out. Let me speed up here. Thought I held it up here for a second.
Mark. It says Mark. Never
Mark.
said Mark before.
You know me, I like to freak out. Why is this doing this?
Melissa's gonna go play ball with you. Can you kick the ball for her? Who's talking to us right now?
There was a pretty strong presence down there of some kind.
Yeah, and I think that's when you got. Was that your Ovilus starting to work? Did you change your batteries or something?
I think that might have been somebody else who's using either an Ovilus or something, I believe.
All right, so let me bring up. It continues. It's like watching TV here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, normally we don't get to do this.
When I tilt it up sometimes. It's weird.
And one of the things that I don't like to do is turn off the device if it's doing it.
David.
All right, so this is your
Sir
fan.
David.
Basketball.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hi, David. I'm Dean. And this said note. Hey, Melissa. Can you hold this? Because we're not going to be able to hear it. And see if any. Oh, it just said something else. It just said when. And it's all full bars. Oh,
What just happened?
you hit the button.
What button?
The next button.
Oh, see, I hit the next button. Sometimes when I hit that, it kind of like
Button up there?
No, there's here.
doesn't react or something. But it did this time. So I turned it off, turned it back on. When she picked it up,
Hi,
she
David. I'm Dean, by the way.
and it just said, I'm not.
Am not? You're not David? This is crazy. This has never talked like this ever.
Right here, then it says I'm not.
They're so colored. I've never seen that before. 2 words especially.
Yeah.
Do you need the nurse?
I'm happy.
Well, we got, is this one of us?
I can help you. I'm one of the nurses here.
That's right. That was Barb. Okay, so that's, it continues on. Pause here.
Yes, it's neat when you have somebody in your medical profession there as well, because a lot of times in the past, when we've been to hospital, we've had nurses coming in their scrubs, and that elicits a response. It's almost like they're role playing, and they recognize you as being somebody in the medical profession, and then they react to you.
Exactly. And then this is the end of it here. Right, so 8.
8.
8.
Is that the number 8?
8 TV, like you're eating something.
There's that number 8 again, but no, it was actually ATE. And then it says man and Luke, and I think we kind of stopped after that. Yeah, I think we were breaking apart after that. Okay. So, that's the first spot in that tunnel is when I started noticing this change in my tool that I had never seen happen before. So we did move to another part of the buildings, and this was the what building was it? The carnival room in? Devon was it? I think it was
Devon Hall.
Yeah, Devon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I know I got a picture of the carnival here.
Now this is the room that I actually thought I heard a disembodied child's voice.
Okay.
Coming down the hall in the direction where Tim had set up some of the cameras, because I know he has set some upstairs and also downstairs, I think, too.
Yeah, so that's pretty much why they call it the carnival room.
Got a carousel right here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where the kids used to play. And again, it was raining. It had stormed like the couple nights before. I know there was power outages. There was like tornado that whipped through Dayton, Ohio. There was like so much stuff. Storms. We were behind the storms though. It didn't hit us, but we saw the destruction and the wetness and all the puddles and stuff. But
Yeah.
So I brought up the bit. Let me bring up 619 here. So another example of the Ovilus 619.
Sometimes storms actually do enhance paranormal activity when you got the added electricity in the air from lightning.
Right.
Bro. Wow. It just said Johnny.
The black bar.
Johnny. And it's got the full bar again.
It actually came up with 2 names.
Johnny, are you playing basketball? Can you shoot a basket for us? Are you able to make a free throw? From that wall, make that basket go in. Or the ball go in the basket.
There's Lynn. So again, another black line. Can you move that balloon?
We had a lot of names coming through.
It just said calcium. Calcium. Yeah. And again, just, the demonstration of that being a black line consistently. All right, so then let me pull up the other part here. 016. 016.
That's what happened. Yeah.
Clairvoyant. It just said clairvoyant. And Mikey's going to be talking in the background. All strong bars on this. Who's clairvoyant?
Small gift, I guess. It's the gift of sight. I told them like 3 professionals.
Okay. Are you talking about Mikey over here? Is he clairvoyant? And it didn't say anything up until 222. Where it says or just said aura. A-U-R-A. Which those two words kind of go together,
Well,
right at 222 it said aura. So pretty interesting already. We're in 2 different spots of Pennhurst getting interesting hits, but more importantly is that black line that's straight across the thing. Now, Ron asked, were the names of the dead? Well, throughout the years, there's so many names, and did they even register all the patients there, Dale? I mean, there were so many of them.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure they had a log here somewhere, but the place was severely overcrowded. It was only supposed to hold X amount of people, and it held like 4 times that amount of people. So they didn't have enough staff to take care of people, and that's where some of the neglect came through.
Yeah. So it would be hard to know, Ron, honestly, if it matches. Even if we get a John, maybe there's like 12 Johnnies, or it'd be interesting to see if we found a Johnny Lynn, middle name Lynn or last name Lynn for that matter. Now that would be something, Johnny Lynn.
Yeah.
So of course we didn't stay that long because we had people waiting for us in Gettysburg, and I know we needed to eat lunch, so we kind of all broke apart and went towards Gettysburg. And we made a side trip in Morgantown, which was kind of cool. I'll talk about it. We stopped at this little diner called Claire's Diner, which is kind of fun. I love taking these side trips, Dale, because you never know who you can run into,
Yeah.
And so it's a little diner. It's an old home. It looks like they had pictures on the wall. And, of course, me being the extrovert that I am, or I like to chit-chat with people, in other words, I mentioned there was an opportunity where I was able to talk to one of the waitresses there, and I said, "Oh yeah, we're going to Gettysburg," She's like, "Oh yeah, okay," and I'm like, "So, is there any ghosts in Gettysburg?" She's like, "There's ghosts here. Why do I need to go to Gettysburg?" So right away, she says, "Oh, come on this other side." So the diner's here. I don't know if you can see my arrow or not. The diner's on the left side of the building. And then the original house is still kind of intact on the right side where you see the stairway going up. So she allowed us to take a tour of the place, which is awesome because they were telling us how this little boy was seen walking down the stairs. So, took a picture of that. And, it was just us hanging out for the day. I got some older pictures here that I could bring up. And this is one of the waitresses. It takes me a second to pull it up here. I'll share screen. Yeah, so here's one of the waitresses telling us about the stairway and how this little boy comes down the stairs and that he's always there playing. So here we are just getting something to eat, and we got ourselves another ghost story. Didn't plan it, didn't do anything. It was awesome. Let me see, just because I know some older pictures here. Oh, actually, there is a write-up. So I was kind of taking pictures on the wall of the place. Let's see if this works.
While you're pulling it up, can I just make a quick comment here?
Sure.
One thing I was just wanted to, as a kind of a closing statement here for the Pennhurst thing, really quickly here. When we were in the Devon Hall, basically that's where the children's spirits are supposed to be. We did get a very clear voice that came through the obelisk, through the plasma box that actually said, "Don't call my mom."
Don't call my mom.
Don't call my mom.
What every kid says.
So
Every kid in the world has probably said at least once.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe they were
Maybe twice.
maybe they were being a bit mischievous in that room or something. And maybe said, "Don't call my mom." That's pretty awesome.
Right.
This is the original building back then before it was made into a restaurant.
Yeah. And look at HG. You see on the wall back here, it was a furniture store. HG Waller or something furniture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's the stairs.
Spirits have an affinity for going up and down stairs. I mean, look at all the famous photographs that have been taken of spirits on stairs.
Yeah. And this is the little boy that's supposed to be haunting it.
Oh, wow. They know what came then, I suppose, right?
Post-mortem photograph of Alan Weaver. So it was Weaver. HG Weaver Furniture.
Okay.
So if you're ever in the area again, check it out because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But post-mortem photography.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of creepy. I know Laura's a big fan of post-mortem photography, and it's hard to find. So that was like a little side trip before we went down to Gettysburg, and actually more of the old orphanage is where we were heading first, right? I want to say. Yeah, that was first before Jennie Wade. So so we're leaving Pennhurst. It's behind us, but somehow still with us. Morgantown, just a little diner in the middle of Morgantown, Pennsylvania, just to kind of get our mind off of Pennhurst, I guess, before going to Gettysburg. And then especially the old orphanage. Now, at this time, this is when COVID was hit. For the first time, I had anxiety. And my anxiety level was high. I was anxiety and claustrophobic, and I've never been that way. I've been in caves and stuff, but I think over the years it progressed. I'm better now, actually, but I just moved out of the old schoolhouse into the basement here, which I'm still in here. Hopefully out here by the end of September, upstairs in a room I'm going to repaint and stuff. But anyway, so going to the old orphanage, that's where they had the pit in the basement. And I went down there, and I just didn't want to be down there. I really didn't. So as soon as the guy gave his 15-second spiel, I was up the stairs. I think I actually got a video of me walking up the stairs, hightailing it out of there.
All the way down on your left, you got 6. No, I think about talking about. Just be careful, guys. There's 4 small back there. I'm just reading. Yep, so you can't go anymore, then turn left.
But they'll probably add that to the YouTube page when I upload this one. But it was kind of funny. But what was it? Rosa Carmichael? Was that the lady's name?
Yeah, I believe it was. She was a very bad headmistress there.
That's like an understatement of the year. Very bad. She was
yeah, also totally terrible. Yeah.
According to the papers, the only thing she had going for her was that she was female.
Right. Yeah. But she used to beat the children. Supposedly they chained them up downstairs. We actually saw some of the chains and the metal still coming out of the wall over there. So I mean, it happened right where you were at, which was would be part of the reason you reacted so strangely there too.
Yeah, I think it was Dr. J. Francis Borms. He was from Philadelphia. He volunteered his service, was credited with being instrumental with establishing the orphanage. But his name would soon become sullied, as they said, through his relationship with Rosa, who he brought in as matron in 1872, and it did close in 1878. So this was an orphanage for soldiers, or Gettysburg battle soldiers, who had kids that they didn't have their parents anymore. So the kids would go to this place where Rosa Carmichael was there. And again, like Dale said, she just kind of made them into little slaves. There was one girl, I want to say Bella Hunter. She was a slave worker that she turned into a slave worker. She had a taskmaster. She had one of the, a 19-year-old boy do some of the tasks for her. So she had a little bit of help. And then I found here that, back to what I was saying about being female, Dr. William H. Ridinger, the Skelly Post of the Grand Army of the Republic, had given her 24 hours to get out of town. Because of her sex, she was fined $20 and cost for aggravated assault and battery. $20 and get out of town. She got away with it. She got away because she was a female. Leave. Just go. Go somewhere else. Pretty wild.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, but you gotta remember, $20 was a lot of money back then, though.
Yeah, 1878. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, $20, I guess. That makes sense. So again, so everyone's downstairs in the pit. They stayed downstairs. Again, back to my claustrophobic. And there was actually, I was sitting down there, and there was one stairway leading out. And this is when my breathing was really bad. I had bad asthma, still do a little bit, and just kind of like, it just, the anxiety was so intense. I waited till people got in, and I stood by the stairs. And as soon as it was done, I was walking up. And grabbed my Ovilus III, and I sat at the table, filmed it, and I believe Melissa came up, and Amanda, not Amanda from Ghost Head Soup, but Amanda from Crawford County. She was up there with us, and some of the things that happened there was pretty cool. I do have some video here. Let's see. 529. Let me see what that one is. It's easier to see. Is that the one I want to play? 2002. 259. 259. Where are you? It's not there. Sorry about the pause here, people. Just trying to find everything. 115259. So while you're in the basement, talk about the pit. I mean, did you find anything down there?
Well, we did get some, words that came through, the different devices. We had an echo box going, and we asked what town are we in, and it replied with Getty, but it didn't finish it. So it was like, just like the beginning of Gettysburg. We also kind of heard like a faint voice that was picked up in the basement that it sounded like it said hi. There was also another one that came through the Phasma box that said, how do? So I think it was going to say, how do you do, maybe, but it's just kind of said, how do. There was also another one it was actually upstairs in the dining room, but it said, I'm afraid, which is interesting to what went on down there.
Yeah.
Down in the dining room again, we asked, are you a little boy or a girl? And the device says a little boy. So, I mean, we got some pretty crazy stuff that happened when we were there. We doing a quiet time in the basement, and we heard like two muffled knocks that came through the wall.
We heard those upstairs too.
Yeah.
I heard something, yeah. And it was kind of like standing right next to somebody.
And we were all doing quiet time, which means we were all sitting down, we were all being quiet, we weren't asking questions, and we hear these muffled knocks come through, which I thought was pretty strange.
Okay,
so we have a couple of things that came through that were like disembodied, the knocks, the little sound of a little boy or a little girl. You couldn't tell which one it was that kind of said hi. It could have been a boy with a high-pitched voice, or it could have been a little girl.
All right, so I'm going to try this here because it looks like I'm not able to pull that file up. So I'm going to try to share my screen and see how that goes. Well, it looks like it's doable. Just let me know if you can hear it. You're hearing the noise? It's kind of low.
Yeah.
No, it's 100%. Oh, I think I'm whispering because I didn't want to disturb you guys downstairs. So while this is playing, one of the see if I can. So the first word that came out was syllables. And then I believe I asked the boy what was he accused of stealing? And the word that came up was leaven, which would represent yeast,
Right.
which bread is made out of yeast. So I don't know, did they refer to it as leavened bread at one point? I think they did. Leavened.
Yes.
I don't think I show anything here. But that's me upstairs. I don't think I show the words, but so the focus was on two of the ladies who were there. This is, I believe, the write-up that I put on your page. Were with us. I asked the spirits to tap either Amanda or Tim, the Amanda from Ghost Head Soup, who were downstairs, on the shoulder. Which there were actually two Amandas. The Ovilus III said Allie, which is the name of Allie from Crawford County Ghost Hunters. It also gave me Indian, and that's when Melissa actually reacted and said the Amanda who was upstairs with us had a T-shirt on that said Indiana. So Indiana. So some of the words that came up were syllables, leaven, puncture, crescent, sub, which would be a sub sandwich, but not, I don't think it's called sub back then. Blog, obviously not. Medicine, take, Sam, person, bath, alley, Indian, mitten, decimal, almost, last. So you can see, like, the machine is kind of like reacclimated itself or something. So I'm noticing that it's not doing what it was doing at Pennhurst. It said verb 6, projection, kept, feet, react, sentry, direct. So it was coming out now, and it says how, killed, and information. As I said, the bar was decreasing. Maybe the boy didn't have enough energy, or maybe the boy wasn't that strong. I mean, the spirit of the kids back then, that's 1870, where Pennhurst is a more modern, so to speak, I guess. I don't know if you have any more thoughts on the old orphanage, but I could see that the Ovilus was starting to change back to what I'm used to it doing.
Mm-hmm. Unless you want to see if I can play this one little clip here, where I asked if it's a little boy or a little girl, and it said little boy.
Okay, yeah.
I can play this real quick here. Are you a boy or a girl? A boy. I don't know if you heard that well, but
Yeah, there was something there.
yeah, it's better with the headphones, obviously. But you know, there were a couple of things like. Let's see if we can play this one here. When I asked what town we were in, it started to say Gettysburg, and it said Getty.
Oh.
What town are we in? You hear that?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the device that device that I was using it's not one I use that often because it's actually kind of very annoying to listen to. But sometimes once in a while it'll say something that's kind of interesting.
Okay. I thought I had the pictures here. So then we go to Jennie Wade house, which is right across the way. I mean, it's walking distance. We actually walk to and from there. No, she was the only civilian that was shot and died in Gettysburg, correct? Is she the only one?
Yes. She was actually making bread for some of the soldiers some of the Union soldiers, and went back in, and apparently a gunshot, muscle ball, mini ball, went through both doors and actually hit her in the back. They couldn't get a doctor or anything. They took her down the basement, and she just more or less just kind of bled out.
And you can actually see that bullet still.
Yeah. It's still there.
So at the Jennie Wade house, and it's kind of cool because you can actually go upstairs. So they were shooting west to east, and to get out of danger, they actually pounded through the brick wall to get into the other townhouse and then take her out into the basement on the other side. And that's where she perished. That's where she died. And we were able to go into the basement. Again, I did stand outside because of the claustrophobia, and I was doing my own Ovilus stuff. So I wanted to show you at least the picture of how the Ovilus was starting to act now. Picture's there. Why is it? Okay, that's that one. There you go. Memories. So you can see how that black line has changed.
Yeah.
So it started doing something different. I don't know if it was just maybe getting tired or just going away or just running out of energy. But now I'm noticing this stuff. And when I'm outside, the first word that came up was memories. I got port, burn, Harriet, apart, Tom, or, and demon was another one. Demon, of course.
Yeah.
So then I asked if it knows Jennie Wade. Do you know Jennie Wade? And it said shoot and scent. And then it said shoot, scent, yourself, gray, pass, boot. So all those are, those are pretty detailed to the Civil War, right? Shoot, especially if I asked if they know Jennie Wade. Shoot, scent, yourself, gray, pass, boot. And then it said which.
Some of the stuff that we got was pretty interesting on the plasma box. We asked the question about what cemetery is Jennie buried in, and it said Evergreen.
Yeah.
And that's where she's buried. It also said, be careful with them. And then the name Jennie came right after that.
It said be careful with them?
Be careful with them, yeah. And I don't know what that means. And then Jennie came after that. And then we had a kind of like a voice that said, get out of here, that came through. A very faint voice. It didn't come through any device, actually. And then we actually did get, it was called the Sangean Ghost Box, kind of an AM sweeper. And we asked what's the name of the town, and the device actually said Gettysburg. So we also got in the basement that says Jennie sleeping. Obviously, she wasn't sleeping. She was probably dead at that point. Mikey actually got his name called out, Mikey, in the basement. And then we were in the basement, and the Phasma box just kind of shouted out, shoot him, shoot him. And then, of course, it was a kind of couple swear words that came through. We were asking, can you tell me what year that you were shot? We were trying to ask Jennie if she was still around. And the device says, son of a bitch, it hurts. Are we dead?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And that all came through the Sangean Ghost Box, and that was pretty pretty crazy. So yeah, we did get some really crazy stuff.
I wonder if it was about the same time because you guys were in the basement when I was getting this because I got chutes sent yourself, gray past boots. So like the soldiers were passing during gray. I mean, they're referred to as gray. Boots, chute, obviously, and and then I seen a shadow. So I saw a shadow, and I investigated the front, and there was no way that I could see how a shadow was casted. I tried every which way. So for me to see the shadow right at the front of the house was interesting. And then the obelisk said, now, I don't mean to jump to conclusions here, but this is pretty hilarious and pretty close. So it said General Free. General Free. Sounds like General Lee.
Yeah.
General Free. But again, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but that's what came up. General Free after all these other ones. General Free, and it said difficult, base, town, different.
See, a lot of times, I've been using obelisks for a while, and there are only so many words that are in the dictionary if you're using the dictionary mode. So sometimes it'll pull out something that sounds like it, or it's close to it. Perhaps it's trying to put together the rest of their sentence or the rest of the words that they're putting together. So sometimes you might get something like what you just said, General Freed. It could be General Lee because it sounds like Lee. And I've noticed that, in a lot of different experiments we've done with the obelisks.
And then lastly, at the Jennie Wade house, it said door. The bullet went through the door, or the mullet ball, or whatever you call it. Door lost life. Outside, she was removed. And then harvest was the last word before I shut it down. Harvest. So door lost outside. So I thought that was a pretty good session out there, especially seeing the shadow. And it sounds like you were having kind of the same thing with shooting everything down in the basement. So
yeah,
again, nothing fancy with the obelisk other than some similar words. General Free, obviously, but the black mark was going away. It started in the old orphanage, and then Jennie Wade. So I was like, okay, so it's getting back to normal. And of course, you change batteries the course of the way, but it still happened regardless if changing batteries.
Yeah.
So, so then of course we go into the battlefield now at the. Any lasting impressions about Jennie Wade's house, or?
Well, I mean,
it's pretty cut and dry, right? This is where she died.
Pretty cut and dry. I mean, basically, it's not the first time that civilians have been killed in battle. I mean, not here in Gettysburg, but elsewhere. And it's a very tragic thing when that does happen, especially when the troops out there actually trying to help out, trying to bake bread for people, the Union soldiers and so forth that were fighting, trying to keep Gettysburg from falling into Confederate hands. And of course, when she goes back in and just sheer luck or disluck, I guess you would say, bullet comes through two different doors to actually hit her. I can't hear you now.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, when I switch, because to play video, I got to pull my headset. All right. Okay. So to switch gears, or to end out the 2020 Gettysburg trip, for the obelisk anyway, this is Devil's Den and Triangular Field. And this is a video that we captured going down there, and the obelisk was pretty wild here. You get a good glimpse of us walking down there. So you can see now I'm back in the field. It says diction, do. I think I spliced this up, so Wish, Slur. So it's starting to I feel it getting acclimated again, especially with the black bar. And then it comes up with band. Paint, which is a military term, right? Paint something, or even at the paint, the rust-colored paint. Remember we learned about why the barns are red?
Yeah.
And then the other one is, so it was band, paint, and then iron. See, iron. Again, black bars.
Yeah.
Now we did the orphanage first, didn't we? Or was that later at night? So this was probably before the orphanage. So you could see that the power of the Ovilus was still going strong. Later in the evening, as we approached the old orphanage and Jennie Wade house, then it started getting less energy, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, and this is where I got the ticks. So yeah, if you go out to Gettysburg during tick season, protect yourself. I had 3 on me. I think Amanda had 4. It was crazy. And of course, I can't breathe running up the hill. I'm like, save yourselves, Big giant tick eats me.
Crazy.
But remember that I have to bring up tick because it plays out later on. And
for me, it's chiggers. For you, it's chiggers.
Yeah. So not too far from here. I mean, just kind of like up the hill here, from where we're standing, is the sharpshooter wall. And I did use the Ovilus there, and it says, well, shy, sovereignment, I believe, and preacher and hold.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see these words are coming up that were quite different. And that was later in the evening. That's when it started getting dark, is when we were there, because we were roaming around. And I was, I believe I smelled off because I just covered myself with tick protection. But of course, that spot was where they picked up those shadow figures, right? Or those people walking through the woods.
Yeah.
Back there in the triangular field.
Yeah. There's been a report of what's called a Phantom Regiment that's been seen kind of marching, maneuvering, and that was the same angle where the Texas and Arkansas brigade came up. Remember that tour we did? We started way across the field at that White House, the Slayer farm, and they went all the way across that field, past this little stream, up through the triangular field, and then up into Devil's Den and Hulk's Ridge. Before they eventually took some of the guns there, then eventually went against the. They got kind of split up at that point, but then part of them went one direction, part of them went up towards the Little Round Top, and those the Little Round Top, they paid very dearly for that.
Yeah, the places. I mean, if you haven't been out there, definitely get out there. And I noticed that there are roads there, so headlights can influence some of the shadows. I mean, obviously, we're all investigators. We keep that. We answer those questions. We keep that in mind when we're reviewing evidence. But, it's. Didn't they get to Crawford County? They were getting some screams and stuff. I haven't reviewed any of their videos of Gettysburg. Did you see anything that they captured? I thought they got like a cannon or some kind of sound or something out there.
Yeah, they were actually. Me and a couple of people were up on the rocks of Devil's Den, which, by the way, if you go up there at night in Devil's Den, you got to be very careful because you can fall right into a hole. street stations up there. But we were up there, and they were down in the triangular field there's a stone wall on one side, and there's like a fence and part of a stone wall on the other side, but there's some trees on one side. And they were down in there, and they said that they were hearing what sounded like either distant cannon fire or maybe possibly close to alarms firing. And we had two-way radio, so they were calling up to me, "You hear it?" And I said, "Well, no, I actually don't." And the other two people with me hear it. And I kind of wrote that off as being that possibly an acoustic anomaly, that we were on a higher up and they were down, I don't know, perhaps it was more humid down there. Maybe the sound traveled differently down there than up where we were because we had a nice breeze coming past us. But then, within a few minutes, I began to, instead of the other two people with me, began to hear like boom, 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 boom in the background. And then as we went back down there, eventually it all seemed to stop. So it was kind of very short-lived.
Yeah, and do you think people in that area in the distance would shoot off cannons? I mean, is this something that like people on farms and stuff would do? Because
no,
you know,
the only thing I could think of is that maybe somebody was out there shooting off fireworks, perhaps, or possibly maybe shooting off some guns. I don't know too many people that go hunting at night, so I don't think somebody would have been shooting any weapons out there, or surely no cannons out there. But I mean, it's always a possibility. I mean,
I go hunting at night.
Yeah. I mean,
they kicked us out, Dale, at night. They kicked us out of there.
Yeah, I mean, we were there at the beginning of August, so we're like, literally a whole month after 4th of July. So, I mean,
yeah.
It's like it was close to 4th of July, and people were still trying to burn off the rest of their fireworks and everything. So
that's a good point, yeah. So so that kind of closed out 2020 for us, and Dale, that was my first time there. It was amazing. And you said you want to go back, and before you even finished the statement, I'm like, yeah. No. And so we did go back in 2021, and I saw Ron had to sign off because he had to go to sleep, but he did join us in the 2021 trip. Of course, I'm in Ovilus III, so I have that again, and it starts doing more stuff out there in Gettysburg. Now, we didn't go to Pennhurst this trip, but we spent more time in Gettysburg, seeing a lot more, thanks to our awesome tour guide, this guy over here. Man, if you want to go, this is the guy to go with. Me and Melissa, we were hanging on every word, watching everything you were doing. It was awesome. Thank you again for that.
oh, my pleasure.
Could go back. I could live out there for at least 5, 6, 15 years.
Well, just to kind of titillate your appetite, I mean, we are possibly looking at going back there again in 2023. So, I mean,
that's not too far away.
I've been out there for 6 or 7, 8 years, and I still haven't seen everything I want to see. And as I watch more of these American Battlefield Trust videos, and together collections of books and DVDs I have, I invariably come across places on the battlefield that are very, very secluded, very kind of off the beaten track, but they had a lot of deaths. In fact, when we were trying to set up, just to make the long story short, over there in the wheat field and the peach orchard, I mean, that area really has more walks of life than any other section of the battlefield. More than Devil's Den, more than Little Round Top, and more than Pivot Charge.
I got another story, and we're going to run over people. We're probably going to go even up to 9:30. I'm going to say, because I got some more stuff to share, but because this is just a crazy story, and the Ovilus III. Just again back to that. So I'm going to play this video of the first stop of the tour, Reynolds Woods. No, that's the first stop of the tour, right? Reynolds Woods.
Yeah, it probably was one of the first stops. I mean, Reynolds Woods is part of day one, And we had went through a couple of places where the Heath Woodley tree was, where the John Burns statue was, and Heath Woods. We eventually got over to what's called Reynolds Woods, where Major General John Reynolds, the highest commanding officer, Union officer, in Gettysburg, was killed, and probably the second most highest officer in the Civil War of Union was actually killed. Only John Sedgwick was a higher officer than him.
Wow. So I don't know what's going on here, but I'm going to play a clip. It's going to be about 5 minutes long. Here's ridiculous me here with my arthritic gloves because my hands were killing me. And I think those gloves actually made it worse, so I didn't wear them again. But so this is the Ovilus. It started, I was saying, I walked over to Ron and asked about the garden, and then I asked you where the garden was, and this is me talking about it, and again, freaking out. You can hear it, right?
Yes.
It's a problem. You see, I'm sitting there freaking out, just do, trying to figure it out. Well, in other words, I don't want to go back into the words because I don't want to mess this up. You can see I was concerned.
Yeah.
Or thinking, I should say. But I won't. So I did. I first turned it on. So now I'm going back to the words because it keeps the words. Oh, I missed. See, now I'm seeing something that I'm missing words. I've been holding that thing the whole time. So when I first, am I being recorded? So when I first started the Ovilus, it said step. And then it said sign. And see the black mark on there? So I was talking to Melissa. That's like a stronger feel. So you'll see all these next words have this black line on it. Normally it's just like a little sliver. Barely a sliver. So step and sign. And I said, okay, where do you want me to go? It said garden. And see the black line on it? So I asked Dale where the garden is. And he goes, remember that little garden in the back of Lee's headquarters?
Yep, zooming in on it. Right there. In that white picket fence, right?
Yeah. So you step right here, and you see a sign that says the Thompson House.
Yep.
Thompson House. It was the widow Thompson House. This is the words that I've been getting. Step. Sign. I said, where do you want me to go? That's a sign. And it said garden. Then I asked Dale where the garden is, and he said Lee's headquarters. There's a fenced-in garden back there. He goes, and there's a step. And there's a sign, and I said, yeah, look, it says the Thompson House, which is my last name. Look at the bar. Oh, wait, there's more. And then it says, mostly, I forgot what I asked. And then it said pride.
Okay.
And then this I missed. Grandpa. That I didn't even hear or see. So right at that moment, okay, so take aside the Thompson House. And there's a coincidence there. That's what me is going like this. But now it's even more relevant because after it says mostly pride, and then when it was live, it said odd. And I was walking away from Ron and I said, oh, it said you're odd, you know? And then, but now odd isn't there, but Grandpa is.
And where?
And where? Grandpa and where? Like W-H-E-R-E?
And then it said Mammy.
And then it says Mammy.
Mammy?
Mammy. M-A-M-M-Y.
Can you pause that for a second?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
What's even more interesting about the garden, when you asked about the garden, remember where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you were on Seminary Ridge. You were on the first day of battle. To your left and Tim's left, our right, is where Reynolds was killed, is where the Union troops were lined up.
Yeah.
Pushed off of this ridge by Heath, Rhodes Division, and they actually went towards Lee's headquarters through that. If you remember where those signs were that I had my name on the sign?
Right. Yeah.
They were pushed all the way through there, past Lee's headquarters. Now, Lee didn't have this headquarters at this point, but later on, after they pushed the Union through Gettysburg, they pushed them right past Lee's headquarters, right past that garden, right past those interpretive signs, and all the way into the town of Gettysburg. And then Lee's army controlled the Seminary Ridge. So that's very interesting when they said, where do you want us to go? And it says the garden. And
Yeah.
You guys are Union guys, right? So they're saying, where do you want us to go?
Yeah.
Pushed off by Rhodes and Heath's division.
Right. To thank you for that, because I mean, to me, Step Sign Garden was freaking me out, as you could tell. And then now it says Grandpa and then where? W-H-E-R-E, Mammy. And it goes on.
Grandpa and then Mammy.
Well, if there's any relation to that with you.
Grandma. And then I said, should I march over there? And it said
Limp. Like a soldier, a wounded soldier.
Yeah.
You know, again, speculated.
I think I'm talking to a spirit. This is what I said. I think I'm talking to a spirit about the piece of back of it said rest. And then it said problem. And notice the black lines are still strong. Rest and problem.
Rest problem. And then I think it finished with.
Because I just went through the words and just.
I turned it off and it said levitation and tilt.
And I'm still.
Are you feeling charged,
charged
or is it
up.
just you're kind of
Anxious,
anxious?
yeah.
Anxious.
Nervous, anxious. Because I didn't know what it was telling me, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, was there more? I think I had it up to, let's see, 5, till about 5:07, so there might be a little bit more here.
This stuff only happened before, coming from Penn levitation. So now the bar is a little bit smaller. This is normal bar, but it came from Penn House to Jennie Wade's house, the orphanage, and then it started to slow down. That's the only time it's done. Like the full boat, this is a full boat, but it's still, all right, so levitation and tilt. All right, so now we're back to normal. I'm going to turn it off.
So I turned it off and kind of reset it. So maybe it needs a little time to acclimate itself again. But yeah, Step Sign Garden, and the fact that it was the Thompson house, and we weren't even there yet, I don't think. We didn't make it over there yet.
You said Step Side Garden?
Step Sign, sorry. Step Sign Garden. Thank you. Yep.
It would have been more. It would have made more sense if it would have been Step Side Garden, or you would have been stepping to the side of the garden.
Gotcha.
That would have been awesome if that would have came true.
Well, maybe side's not in there. I'll have to check my check my stuff. So let's see. So here's video H276. See if that one's on here. Because then I went back and I filmed the actual words so you could see it. All right, so I'm going to advance this to 7:53. See, this was what I was working on all last night. Getting the time set up here. So
this is Reynolds Woods. Step. Sign. Garden.
And now the next word.
You see when it said garden, the black bar got even farther away.
Yeah.
Mostly.
And then after mostly, it should say pride and odd. On my recorder, that's what I have recorded, me saying it into my recorder. Mostly, pride, odd, and then when I went back in the words, you saw the video. But watch what happens.
Then it said pride. And then it said odd. And then it said grandpa or something. But this is what comes up. I did not see that. Where?
So now odd is missing. Grandpa's missing. And it's replaced with where. So before we had general free, but now we have werewolf. Or wolf where.
Remember what they used to call General Lee?
No.
They used to call General Lee Old Granny.
Oh, wow. Oh, Granny, like Granny?
Granny, Granny.
Oh, wow.
They used to make fun of him because he was older than a lot of officers were at that time. So they said, "Well, he's an old granny," but obviously he went over to prove everybody wrong about that.
Wow, I didn't realize that actually.
Yeah.
Okay, why isn't this playing? Play, damn it, play. Did it go away?
No, it's still on the screen.
Yeah, but it's... Let me try to pull it up again. Oops.
Now, if you guys are interested in going back next year, let me know.
Yes. Was that fast enough for you now?
Either going to be early spring or fall. Looks like possibly.
Sign. Garden. Mostly. Then it said pride. And then it said odd. And then it said grandpa or something. But this is what comes up. I did not see that. Where? Mammy. Limp. Rest. Problem. Levitation. Tilt. Get.
So the only thing that I don't have is a picture of it saying grandpa. I didn't put it up. I didn't put it up to Melissa's camera to review.
If you have it staying kind of in reverse, werewolf.
Yeah, werewolf.
Yeah. Where?
But there's something.
Yeah.
So I'll share you on another story. Share with you another story here. So that's the Reynolds Woods, and of course we go to Lee's headquarters. And there should be a picture here. P131. P131. Nope, don't have it. But Lee's headquarters, real quick, is some of the words that were there, and these are. It wasn't as powerful as the bigger bars, but some of the words were powerful. So get, sunrise, deplete, 15. So again, I feel that it's acclimating itself. And then it said bones, which had the bigger bar. And then it said outside, Tom, possible, haste, story, property, pet, quill, dollars. The bar started getting bigger again. And then it went away, kind of said solo, still, although, and then ceiling, which was a high bar. And there was, the attic was kind of trap door like up there. And if you look through the window, I kind of noticed that ceiling was lifting where the trap door was. And had Tim go over there and try to film it. But because of the reflection on the window, it was really hard to get that effect going there. But it did seem like when it said ceiling, that's when I was looking at the ceiling move. Dime, green, saw, beat, compound, classic. Came up with the number 7. Car, doctor was another big line. So bones, dollars, ceiling, and doctor, and make were kind of like the bigger bars there. So nothing, I think I should have went when it asked me to go. And I think I should have walked because it kind of told me to walk. I was almost going to walk, but because of my breathing, my wheezing and everything, I kind of felt that was probably not the right thing to do. But then I thought of all the soldiers who's done it in the past, and I'm like, wow, Dean, this is what a cop out, But anyway. And then later on, this is where I took your video. Okay, so, and any more about the Lee's headquarters? I appreciate you telling me how they came through there, because that kind of paints a better picture there with the garden. And I know there's like a little doghouse too. What's the story on that?
Well, that was actually there when that was a private residence before it became Lee's headquarters. And
the Thompson House.
Right. So basically, it people, when they compare photographs to what it looks like today and it looks like now, I mean, the house has been built a little bit because it's how many hundreds of years old.
Right.
But it's right there at the edge of the garden. It's actually facing what would have been Seminary Ridge, which would be they call it a cemetery ridge, if you say, because it was where the cemetery was located. And Seminary Ridge is where the seminary was located. The giant big building that at one time was actually used by General Buford as an observation point when he was waiting for General Reynolds to come in. But it's just so crazy that those words came out, because that was the retreat right past the Thompson House, right past the Theologian Seminary, and right through the town of Gettysburg. Yeah.
So Laura Redmond says, good God, that was spewing out a ton of words. I have gone with not one word from the obelisk for a whole investigation. Well, because you didn't go to Gettysburg. Oh, yeah. These are, the famous words that always come up. Autumn, foliage, Paul. Also Saturn. Saturn's another one that comes up all the time. So again, it's us learning our tools. And the more you use it, the more you learn it. And then eventually when you go to places and you start seeing these changes, that's where you have to notice something here. And I'll go, again, I'll lead into more of that. But Spangler Spring, we actually may be longer than 9:30 now. We might take this to midnight.
I'm not doing anything.
Well, this is just our one trip. So Spangler Spring, this famous water source, it's at the base of Culp's Hill. Their stories, it says enemy fraternization at the water source, and some say it's largely a myth that didn't happen. It says the stone canopy built over the spring was made from granite left over from the construction of the 44th New York Monument on Little Round Top. Inside the canopy, you'll find anchors that once used to hold a dipper, signage, and a Dixie cup dispenser. Dixie. That's
kind of big.
Dixie cup dispenser. Yeah. Nearby is the post-war soldier rock carving denoting the spot where Augustus Lucien Cabell of the 1st North Carolina Infantry was positioned during the horrific battle. So there we did I'll have you share some of your thoughts about the springs, but there's where we did a live Facebook feed, which was very important to what's happening with the Ovilus III. Now I got a video to match what I was doing. I have a live video to match the words changing. So your thoughts on the spring itself, Dale?
Well, I mean, the springs has always been, part of that anchor point for the Union, one of the Union flanks at that point. That was
they use the Dixie cups by chance?
Say that again?
Did they use the Dixie cups by?
No, I don't think they were there at the time, but that was part of that fish hook, line that went all the way from Culp's Hill all the way to Little Round Top and to where the 20th Maine were anchored. So that whole area just below Culp's Hill, where Spangler Springs, that was the only freshwater well or spring anywhere nearby. So it was controlled by the Union Army at that point. The Confederates had made charge after charge coming up that hill. They couldn't dislodge them. One of the oldest generals on the battlefield at that time was General Greene, and I think he was 63 or 64 years old at the time, and he controlled that little rounded fish hook display where they kept. There was a lower and an upper Culp Hill, as I showed you guys when we were there.
Yeah.
And, he controlled the upper Culp Hill. And they had a lot of breastworks that were built up there, stones that were carted from long distances to make this a very safe area for the Union Army. And going back to that story about people from both sides apparently coming and filling their canteens there, and they say that's a true story. They would talk to one another. It was so dark they couldn't see the color of their uniforms. There was no light out there. It was no moonless night, and they would start to talk to one another, and they would say, "Oh, where do you hail from?" And they'll be like, "Well, I'm from Illinois. Well, I'm from Alabama." Whoa! And then they would pick up. And supposedly that's a true story.
So the water cooler was basically the safe zone for everybody.
Supposedly, yeah. It was, there were regiments of both, both of the armies that were stationed very near there. But of course, later on, as they solidified that upper and lower Culp Hill, they really kind of pushed the Confederates back, and they never were able to get to that location ever again.
Right. So here's a video of this. Here's Tick. So you can see Tick was on there. So this was like a splicing it up. I'm not going to play the full clip, but this is us at the Spangler Spring area. And of course, Tick, I had a tick on me last year. So we're watching for ticks. You hear Sylvia talking in the background. So hopefully plays good. See, it's doing it again.
A pretty famous ghost photograph taken over there in the direction that you guys are facing in that picture. Right. Down that avenue, so to speak, there's a kind of a swale back there, and there's some trees. that line the one section over there. And down in that swale, there used to be a little a wooden building or stone building at one point. I think remnants are still there. And somebody was just snapping ordinary photographs, and they see a person standing there. And there's no cars, there's nobody. It would be a long walk for somebody to get out there.
Right.
And you look up there after you took the photographs, and there's nothing there.
I think it's back there where you're talking
We're
about.
at Spangler Springs.
Yeah.
So she's offered you water. She's here.
Gettysburg.
Please address her kindly.
So we let this 1724. Is this what I'm gonna do?
Hi, Greg.
1724 or 1724. So fuzzy.
Edison.
So on the left is your Facebook Live feed. On the right is me filming live the actual words that are on the Ovilus.
Lust.
So I'm matching it with your video.
And it's the big black bar. This doesn't happen anymore.
And there's that black bar again.
Gettysburg.
Shove.
Wow. Shove is not there, but it replaced it with triangle.
Shove is gone.
Triangular field.
Your live video shows it says shove.
Most. Coming after your windfall? Most.
You saw that, man. I don't get it. Triangle, shove, or triangle. And this is live.
Design.
So you can see it changed words.
Yeah.
And it went from shove to triangle, triangular, you know. I mean, I just, you know, it's
That's actually really close to what a triangular feel is. I mean, we're on the other side of the battle pretty much at that point, but it's interesting that came up. Maybe there is no triangular in the Ovilus, but there's a triangle.
Yeah, there is. And it said a bunch of other stuff here, so let me keep sharing here. Okay, which one am I doing? 7-9. Mm-hmm. 241.
Triangle.
So now it says triangle again. So you can see that it does come up again. Triangle.
So it came up now. Now they match, but before it didn't. It said shove and triangle twice. Why did that change?
So it mentions triangle. It says shove, replace it with triangle. And then it says triangle again. So they're telling me something, Dale?
Yeah.
Now, the number for the list of words, triangle is number 941 out of 2000, whatever. And shove is 934. So it is right above triangle. So it's pretty close. I don't know if that has an effect. But so remember the other word that replaced itself. It was odd, and grandpa was replaced with wolf, correct?
Right.
So last night when I was looking near Spangler or Spangler?
Spangler.
Spangler Springs. there is a Wolf Hill.
Yeah.
So I found in February 21st, 1909, there was a suicide on Wolf's Hill. The story of G.F.G.E. Thomas, a German, came over 37 years prior to 1909, is a hermit who lives on a section of the battlefield in Gettysburg. He kind of started freaking out. He was fearing an imaginary enemy he claimed was hypnotizing him. He actually told the constable that he was being tormented and he was surrounded in his cabin on Wolf's Hill. He was found later hanging from the rafters. On his body, Mr. Thomas's body, or Herr Thomas, they found a book in which words were written, I have not right to protect myself from the one lone enemy trying to make a living without work. He had $2.45 on him. There was a book that's the book was written, One Lonely Enemy Trying to Make a Living. And then there was also cardboard signs that said, In hoc signo vinces. So I don't know all that stuff, but I know there was
Colonel Strong Vincent, who was killed on Little Round Top.
Well, yeah, this is a phrase that there's actually I do have a picture of his death certificate. But there is a podcast, strangefamiliars.com, and it talks in depth about this story. So I'll share that in the comments of this because I don't even want to go dive deeper into that. But it talks about how this sign could be related to a lot of what he's feeling. Maybe he was seeing ghosts. He's on top of this hill. And it also gives you a location of where the cabin is. And they also say that this area of the field is haunted because 2 years after his death, the cabin burnt down under mysterious circumstances, and his ghost is said to be haunting Wolf Hill. Now, as I bring up this death certificate, are you familiar with this story?
Well, I'm familiar with a very similar story that on certain hazy evenings, a figure of a woman glowing in a distinctive bright light has been seen coming or roaming the hills around Spangler Springs. And they say legend has it that she was a jilted lover of who committed suicide here.
Oh.
So we have another possible suicide here. Supposedly, one story is that I've heard two different actual versions of this. The first version I've actually heard is that it was somebody who was waiting for their bull to come home, their boyfriend, and he never came home, so she committed suicide. The other story is a jilted lover, which is a little bit different than just not somebody just coming back from battle.
Yeah, and when you listen to this podcast, well done podcast, it went in and they dove in and got all the stories, and it kind of flips and flops as all newspaper articles do. One had him fearing a hypnotist. Another one had him being the hypnotist. Also, that he was tormented by kids in the area and they actually killed his cat. And that he was so devastated by the loss of his cat because he was a hermit. He had nothing left except this lonely cat, and that he hung himself. However, it also says that he struggled while he was hanging himself, but he was in a position to where he actually probably could have stood up. So maybe there was foul play there. So maybe it wasn't suicide. But here's the article from 1909 talking about it. It's not the full article, but again, listen to the podcast. It's a 2-hour podcast. I listened to about an hour of it last night. I'm definitely going to finish it, and it's awesome. And I would love when we go out here to add this Wolf Hill to one of our nightly or one of our missions to see if we can't find Herr Thomas and see what we can, figure it out on that.
Yeah, like I said, there are so many places still on the battlefield that I haven't seen that I want to explore. I mean, we can easily put this on one, plug it into wherever we're at on the battlefield there.
And then this is his death certificate showing suicide, hanging, and it talks about Foster Beard, who is a character himself. So this podcast does go in and research Foster Beard, and they actually found this gentleman's wife, and when they were married, there's a marriage certificate. So as you can see, February 21st, that's actually the day my brother passed, is February 21st. Not 1909, obviously, but
sure.
But the date is significant to me anyway. But suicidal, hanging, again, if kids were threatening, or if he felt threatened by these kids that were haunting him and killing his pets, and something too with a dog in a wagon that he would be walking around, and it just seemed kind of odd. So yeah, I would definitely. And also on this video, they do go to this location, so they'll show pictures of where it's at, how to get there. I mean, there's a narrow path, but there's other monuments that you're probably not even aware of. It seems like it's all hidden back there. So definitely
going back to some of those obelisk words that came through earlier.
Wolf. Yeah. And that's why I found this. I was like, there's got to be something. And it just took me last night to find it, which was kind of amazing in itself. So back at the Spangler Springs, it also said, because he was noted as a hunter, an excellent hunter and archer, and some of the words. So I went back to some of the words at the Springs, and it said animal, hunting, axe, river, plan, triangle. It was just like, damn. And then it says haunting, lift, cover. So haunting, lift, cover, luck. So is there buried treasure down there? I'm just, and branches, total one. So I'll keep those, it could be a message, a map to a treasure map that they're laying out for me, this guy. But yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't be digging in the battlefield, otherwise we will be permanently banned.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. I'm going to plug my phone back in. Hold on a second. All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and I can hear you too. All right. So that was some of the things. So I'm definitely going to be deep diving more into that story. There is a find a grave about him. He's buried. This podcast says he's buried at an alms grave or a different grave. So there's different locations as well. Again, I'm going to share that link into the comments of this live video.
Now remember, there was an alms cemetery which we actually saw over on Barlow's Knoll.
Is that close to Wolf's Hill? Because Wolf's Hill is right by the springs.
Not really. It's on this would have been Spangler Springs is on the Fish Hook, and that's on the Union left flank. The right, the other location would have been over on the first day of battle, which is on Seminary Ridge. So it's not that close.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's within a mile or so, roughly.
And Wolf's Hill seems kind of be overlooked when people talk about Gettysburg. There's like 4 hills that were kind of like there before the actual battle, that if it wasn't for these locations, some of this stuff would not have maybe even happened, you know.
Yeah.
So it is a big part of it, and I think it's something to look into the next time, one of the next times we go out there.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So as we wrap up here, I wanted to share with you so I sent this concern to Bill Chappell, the maker of the Ovilus III, and kind of get his insight. So it was September 13th of 21. I basically sent in the dictionary, this is what I sent to him. In dictionary mode, the word odd appeared in Grandpa. However, when I went back to review the same saved words, both of these words were gone, and it is in its place was wolf. I am wondering if this has occurred before and how this would happen. It happened twice more, even after fresh batteries have been added. Also, I want to know what the black light means. Is it just higher energy? That's what I'm thinking, but he never asked. And I said, so thank you. And so he responded pretty quick. And he said, Dean, the word value is stored as spoken and held in a double E prom or EE prom. So I looked up that in the Britannia.com technology, and it says having a word change would be next to impossible.
Okay.
So it's just a way to house the words. Those EE proms, they hold the words. Is having a word change would be next to impossible. There are some freak conditional that have been known to affect memory, gluons, quarks, AB particles, etc. But it would be extremely rare not repeating. So quarks make up so this is what I added. Quarks made up the proton and the neutron. They are held together by a force dubbed the chronal force, represented by particles named gluons, which are just as unseen as quarks. So these are like scientific terms, but in my layman term, I'm already thinking this years in advance or years ago.
It's like quantum physics, basically. Yeah.
Another thought is that the EEPROM may be beginning to fail. So he's saying that it's failing and that the store value is losing data bits being stored. So I looked that up and I just found that weak cells are most likely responsible for early EEPROM failures. Weak cells could be induced by process and or poorly programmed timing and or noise margin. Properly margin needs to be extensively analyzed to avoid possible program timing, induce weak cells, which in turn may become early bit failures. So this is only happening in Gettysburg. This only happened like a few times. And the other time it works, does it fail? So it'll be interesting to see if it does it again. And he says, I know you said that you installed fresh batteries. I'm so not a fan of batteries. He says, Duracell is the most cloned faked battery out there, just for future reference, he says. I recommend Energizer Lithium 8 times.
Yeah.
And he says, to answer your question, I always lean toward the simple. Since it has repeated, I'd be more inclined to say memory or battery failure. Regards, Bill Chappell, just my opinion.
Yeah.
So some of these things, it sounds like it's nearly impossible to do. So one of the things, before you comment on that, is one of the theories that I had, or one of the theories that I thought of that could have spirit be alive today, why ghosts exist, is when the spirit dies, when you die, there's energy in your body that can't die. There's gases and forms that literally can't die. So you're still a form of energy somehow, but you don't have this weight of gravity pulling you down on Earth, and now you become weightless. And I always felt that the spirit would rise up to the ozone layer, mix with some of these quarks or protons or whatever, quarks or neutrons or protons, and the proton, of course, would be charging these chemicals to mix with your already energy that you have. You raise to the heavens, so to speak, or the sky or the ozone layer. That's why they probably call it the heavens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Theory, just saying. And gel with the other particles. Proton charges said particles and now gives them an afterlife. So now they have this new life, which is the afterlife. So in this case, the words were changed not because of error, but it was the actual energy of the ghost or afterlife swiping its finger on my device.
Which supposedly is what those devices were made for anyway, for the input of energy from a spirit to manipulate those devices and pull out the appropriate words. That's why in the Ovilus X and the PX, they don't have a black bar. They have power, PWR, power equals, and it has a random number after it. And it's always the same number usually for each word. So certain words, don't ask me how or why, whatever, require more energy than other words.
I found it interesting because he used the term gluon quarks, AB particles, and quarks are made up of proton. And I always thought proton, if we were going to engineer the environment, a haunted location, a proton gun would be your way to go to charge up the energy that's in the room. And the biggest source of proton is, of course, the sun. And how do you get the sun in the dark room? You know, back in the day when you had the old TVs, the proton gun would charge the chemicals on the screen so you could see the image. You know, everything's digital now, so it's not the same process. But that's the same process that you can engineer the environment. And then I came up even further. You know, this is what we do at the lab, Dale. You know this. So thinking outside the box. So, of course, I'm thinking, well, what's a strong energy? You know, when you take off cellophane off of a package, that stuff sticks to you, right? That's pretty powerful energy right there. So I'm figuring, okay, charge the room with the proton gun, fill the room with cellophane, and when the spirits walk in there, that cellophane should stick to that energy, and now you'll be able to see what their new body looks like.
Yeah.
I just created a skin out of cellophane for these ghosts. Do we want to see that? I don't know if we want to see that. What would they actually look like? But then I would think that these energies would give them the ability to now communicate with us again without the use of what we have as far as lungs and vocal cords. They have a new whatever is found up in the heavens that they're mixed with their energy. Again, theory, thinking outside the box. You lean back, Dale. You're thinking.
Well, the easiest way to do this is just to borrow one of those energy backpacks from Ghostbusters. Correct? And
they had it right all along. That's why I say, what would Dan Aykroyd do?
Just don't cross the beams, remember?
You know, that's why our T-shirt says, "What would Dan Aykroyd do?" You know.
Yeah.
So, as far as Bill Chappell's response, what did you think? Do you think that was?
Well, he's technically a genius.
Well, you met the man. You hung out with him for a couple days.
He basically talks like that sometimes too. So, you know, just look at all the devices that guy has built, you know, since digital dowsing was started. And not every single thing that he devised ever was put on the market. I mean, there are devices I would have loved to have that he made prototypes for that used to be on his website as prototypes, but he never made them. Now, why? Because they were just too expensive, they were too difficult to mass produce or whatever. Even though I begged him several times to build me one, he just refused. But you know, when you go to a scientist for a simple answer, you're going to get something not so simple. kind of thrown back at you. And I think maybe he would have tried to explain it a little bit more and down to earth. I mean, I understand what he's saying, but maybe lowered it down a level to not everybody being a scientist would be able.
Well, I'm fine with the terms he used. I'm just saying that he's going with the battery, so he kind of like threw a couple things out there, but he's still telling me that it's next to impossible. So. Yeah. You seen what happened. You saw your live footage and the word changed. So what is your opinion on that part of it?
I've never had that happen before in any device I've used by him, any of the other Oviluses. Is it spirit or is it the device? What's your thoughts? It could be both. I mean, it could be both, actually. I mean, but the devices were built in a way for spirits to impart their energies on to begin with, because the whole idea for these Oviluses is that they were built in such a manner that when spirits go to manipulate the device, well, they're manipulating the device with what? With their energies, because that's all they have. They don't have a physical form anymore. So therefore, what they're doing is they're reaching out and touching the device, lack of a AT&T kind of little, model right there. Reach out and touch somebody. But that's what they're doing. They're basically, they're imparting their energies in a way that they are physically manipulating the devices. The way it was explained to me in very, very simple terms. Is that these Ovilus devices were a way for spirits to physically, in other words, these devices that he built were sensitive to energies, EMF, and things of that nature. And that's not that they have any algorithms or anything like that inside there. They might, I don't know. I've never actually taken an Ovilus apart to try to look at it, because sometimes you avoid the warranty on it, so you don't really want to do that. But I mean, and he won't give you the designs for some of these devices. I mean, the only thing I was able to ever get a design from is his very early a device called the Talker, which was simply a device that only spoke in like a dictionary mode. It didn't have a phonetic mode or any other.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Ovilus III. It does have that Q&A mode, has the phonetic mode, it has other modes, and I don't even go down further other than the dictionary mode.
Right.
So.
But I mean when I purchased that Talker, basically I was just given a little PC board. And that's what I got. And Stanley built the rest. Basically, he put it into a case. He put the off and on switches and all that. And he did all that basically himself, which he understood. So, that even goes even beyond that. If you remember some of those other devices that people had built, Andy Kopic from California, who had also built this, what he calls an inductive probe. And I think you've seen a couple of mine. What my understanding is, the base.
I've never seen your.
Base unit of this is basically a device that was used by telephone people to detect wires in the walls or whatever, and to make sure there was breakage and stuff like that. But if you adapt it properly, and I got the schematics of how you do that. If you know anything about schematics, you go in there and you replace this with that, you twist this wire with that wire, and all of a sudden you got a communicative device. That's the same type of thing that, again, spirits are using their energies to manipulate and come through this device. And in some cases, come through devices with entire sentences and whole conversations, which is a little bit more than what I get, say, with an Ovilus, unless you're going in with phonetic mode, which then it can say more than one word. It can say, basically the phonetic mode is the idea that it's using phonemes. It's using vowels and consonants that you put together to form words, and then you can string those words into sentences, and therefore you can have more than one word come out. And I've had on my Ovilus, in Ovilus X in phonetic mode, I've had whole sentences come out of there. Get out of here, and all kind of stuff like that. And there's nothing that you have to read into. It's like clear as the blue sky that you hear these things. Yeah. Now, again, what's causing that? I mean, something's got to be getting in there. It's not you're not using a database anymore. You're not using the built-in vocabulary. You're actually having something affect the speech synthesizer in that device to create words and then string them into sentences. Something intelligent's got to be doing that.
Yeah, so he says that the word value is stored as spoken word and held there. So if a word disappears, how is it replacing it with a different word? It should just basically be gone. But it's actually taking another word, putting it in there, and that's why I feel it's influenced by something else.
Yeah.
Just based off,
My only other possible thought would be, and I don't see this as right now as a possibility in what you're saying.
Well, we're theorizing, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be a defective unit. I mean, that could be a possibility that it's losing bits of information somewhere along the way.
And that's what he calls out too. Yeah, it could be, or he says that part of it. And when I go further into researching of what that means, it means the weak cells. It could be progressively failing, but it's also progressively doing the same thing that it's always done.
Right, exactly.
So,
and the same thing he told me too is they told you that don't use those cloned batteries.
Isn't that interesting?
Use the lithium, which are the most expensive batteries you can buy in the market. I think you can get like 4 of them for like what, $15 or an outrageous price. I mean, they're very expensive. But he actually says that those are the ones you should be using. What I should be using in my Ovilus X, my Ovilus PX. Now I kind of went backwards a little bit, and I don't always use those because they're just so darn expensive. But they do last 20% longer than normal batteries. Yeah.
Or what if he makes one that you can actually plug into a wall without battery? He says he hates batteries.
Yeah.
So make one to plug into a 12 volt or something.
Right. Yeah.
Would that do you think that would influence or blow it up? Maybe it would just be too much for it.
Probably.
I mean, yeah, because you're looking at AA, AAA, and then 9 volts. So 12 volt might be just too much for the machine.
Yeah. Well, how many batteries does your Ovilus 3 hold? 2 or 4?
Three.
Three.
AAAs, I want to say.
AAAs?
Yeah.
There's a mathematical formula to figure out how many.
I ain't that dude.
how many watts that is, or how many. Stanley would know this if he was around, but
Oh yeah, speaking of which, we should mention Stanley as a tribute to him. Stanley will. He just recently passed. Sorry for your friend's loss there, Dale. But if you want to give a little tribute out to him, go ahead. I would love for you to take this opportunity to say something for him.
Well, I first met Stanley more than 25 years ago, actually close to 30 years ago, when he was actually attending astrology classes at there were these little occult stores that they used to sell books and magazines and incense and candles and all this, and they would have occasionally workshops or speakers, and he was big into astrology. In fact, his trailer he's got a whole bookshelf, literally a whole cabinet full of just astrology stuff. Very, very rare books, by the way. And somehow he found out about myself and my group. Decided to join the group back around 1992, I believe it was.
Okay.
He was with us for many, many years. He was also a technical whiz. Basically, he knew how to build stuff, not only from schematics, from popular electronics magazines. He would find a schematic there. Well, the great thing to build a negative ion detector or a Geiger counter or a cathode ray magnetometer. And I got all these devices. I got them here because he passed, and what I used to do is he would come up with this idea that this would be a great device for the group to have. So I would say, go and buy all the parts, let me know, and I'll reimburse you for everything you spent out of pocket. And at that time, it was all going to Radio Shack.
Sure.
Radio Shack was still around. And he'd build these things, and they worked beautiful. They worked like a charm. I mean, I got a functioning Geiger counter that actually picks up very, very, very well. And I would always ask...
Is it a Geiger counter or is it a radiation sensor? Because there's two different things that I'm learning here.
It actually has a Geiger tube in it.
It has a probe?
It actually has a probe.
Wow. Okay.
It's got a Geiger tube, and the Geiger tube was actually the most expensive part of this. At that time, you were able to find places like, what was that very popular place that you used to buy all the parts from? It's not really...
Fry's?
Not even well before Fry's. It was, I can't think of what it was called, but they had everything electronically and tubes.
Circuit City.
Waiting for that. But anyway, I would buy these things for him, and he would put them together and he'd build them for the group. And then I'd say, well, Stanley, you put all your time and effort. What do you want? I mean, do you want me to give you something for? No, just buy me a cup of coffee or give me some lunch sometime along the way or something. That's all he ever wanted. So he was such a great guy. And he built stuff. Basically, I got stuff here that he built for the group that right now I can't even figure out what. I actually have, let me show you something real quick.
Yeah, Stan, and while he's looking, Stan and I met Stan a couple times at some paranormal events, but he did come up to the Alden schoolhouse and investigated up there, and great dude. Didn't get to spend too much time with him as Dale did, obviously, but yeah, he was a funny dude, and he wore a straw hat all the time. And I remember when I wore my straw hat on there, I was like, man, I'm part of the straw hat team, I don't
know if you can see this thing. There's a control base here.
Yeah.
And, this is the unit that you just set somewhere. And it looks like, a
TNT thing, man. Boom.
A PVC that rotates.
Oh, okay.
And it's got some connectors here. I have to go through my popular electronics magazines because I'm sure he built this out of something. There's a blue box here that used to get their project boxes, they used to call them.
Yeah.
Jack. And the innards are inside here. I don't want to take it apart, but there's innards inside here. I'm thinking that this is either a sophisticated antenna to pick something up, or it's some sort of magnetometer. And I have another one that's actually called a sky magnetometer. It was built by a cathode ray tube. And these are very, very sensitive devices. In fact, when you put the cathode ray magnetometer together, a magnetometer is a step above an EMF detector. He said this thing was so sensitive that he was picking up cars going past. And he had to desynthesize it somehow, that he had to put a control thing in there to make it less sensitive than it actually was. So we never actually used that in the field. Now I have access to that. And Stanley would just come up with something like, oh, I need a device that picks up infrared light. So he built a visible infrared light detector, which I have. And all these
awesome.
And he dreamt it up in his head. Sometimes he would take a PC board because he worked at IBM. He worked on boards like that, little PC boards and stuff. So he knew how to solder. He knew how to use diodes and resistors and transistors and all these different devices in there. He actually built me one time he built me a diode microphone.
Oh, geez.
Which is basically a germanium diode. If you understand how that works, basically a germanium diode is when you put that into a recording device or into a microphone, it only picks up frequencies that are above or below what we can hear. So if you're doing an EVP session and you're asking a question and then you turn this device on and you get a voice that comes through, it can't be one of our voices because it's above or below. It's either infrasound or ultrasound. And I got one of those that he built. So he was an amazing guy. He's going to be greatly missed. And his genius is going to live on for generations to come.
That's awesome. And do you think he's going to communicate back with you at any point?
That would be really cool if he did, because I tell you, I had a friend named Dave Gus who used to buy a lot of stuff for the group. Him and his wife lived in Chicago, then he moved down to Bardstown, Kentucky.
Love Bardstown.
Bardstown, yeah. And after he died, he had pancreatic cancer. He went downhill real fast and he was gone. Yeah. And we did a couple EVP sessions in Farrar School in Maxwell, Ohio, and also at the Owen County Poor Farm in Indiana. And in both cases, we were using a ghost box at that time, like an SB7 or something, or it might even been a Radio Shack Hack, which Stanley also built one of those Shack Hack devices. And as we're communicating with what we thought were just spirits, I had 3 other people around me, and I swear it sounded like Dave Gus's voice came through. They go, "Wow, that's Dave's voice. Did you just hear that?" I go, and we recorded it, and I got it recorded.
Oh, wow.
And I said, and it happened again. It happened first at the Owen County Poor Farm, then it happened again at Farrar School. And I said, "Dave, if you're around us, I know you'd love to do this stuff while you were alive. You can come with us anywhere you want to come. You can communicate. Maybe you can help bridge the gap from other spirits on the other side to come over and talk with us. Come with us and talk with us anytime you want." And we only picked this up twice so far that we know for sure. Well, I know for sure. I'm pretty sure I know for sure. But yeah, I'm never going to be 100% sure, but it sure sounded like him. And other people knew Dave Gus's voice, immediately said, "That's Dave's voice." So, I mean, hopefully if Stanley is not that he's not at rest, but maybe he just wants to reach out because he devoted so much of his life towards the paranormal and building equipment to contact the paranormal, then maybe, he'll communicate with us one day and when we're doing something. And,
with one of his equipment, he's got to talk to one of his homemade things, Exactly. It's got to be, Yeah. Maybe that's what that TNT thing looks like.
Yeah, you never know. Or it might be his big device we call Geist that he put together that hooked up all these different devices and so forth, which I have boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff here that I'm going through. I don't know if you can see, but you probably can't see, but I got like 4 or 5 shoe boxes full of manila envelopes. Every single thing he did with the group.
Wow.
There, his whole life work. And I just went through and I must have scanned in today about more than 400 pictures that I never saw before that he took at various locations. So I'm going to be putting those up on the internet in the upcoming weeks, so kind of keep your eye open for them. But, anything that Stanley did, he's going to get 100% credit for. And
awesome.
I'm eventually going to put up some sort of memorial page up. I already did on Facebook. You might have saw some of those pictures I set of Stanley, but I'm going to put together a page for the website. Himself and of course Rosemary Ellen Guiley and a few other people that were with my group here recently that passed. Paul Stanek. Paul Stanek was the mother of Judy and Mary Huff, one that shot that famous photograph of Batrose Grove. She recently passed.
Why I didn't know that.
She was with our group for a year or more. And then, of course, Barb Heiser, that might not ring a bell, but she actually started with our group And then when she moved to Monmouth, Illinois, which is near the Quad Cities.
Yeah.
She started her own group there. She wrote a book called Small Town Ghosts. And she said that if it wasn't for me, she never would have got into the paranormal. And it makes me feel so good. She touted me as a mentor. So I'm going to be putting together some memorial pages in the upcoming weeks here.
Definitely.
Not only pictures, but videos of these people in action. So they'll live on forever.
Yeah, definitely. And Stanley's going to be missed. It goes without saying. And I know I saw a lot of other people posting as well. And, Chuck Williams, he was a pallbearer and he posted some stuff out there. So
was I.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you were too? Okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jim Graycheck, his friend, was a pallbearer, and I think there was one other person. I don't remember the fourth person was also a pallbearer as well. But he's buried over in Bethania Cemetery. He's right along Archer Avenue, and he said, "I want to be along Archer Avenue, so in case Resurrection Mary goes by, the night away, or when you people go past, you'll see my gravestone, so you'll never forget me. So you can just point. There's Stanley's gravestone right there."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
On that note, Laura says, "Very nice, Dale. Can't wait to see the memorials." And thanks again for joining me tonight. But we can't end the show yet because you got to talk about your event coming up in October.
Sure. It's called the Midwest Spirit Fest. It's October 16th. 2022 on a Sunday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's going to be speakers, vendors, psychic readings. There's going to be in-house paranormal investigations of the haunted underground artesian well, which is pretty cool. It's going to be going on. We have a number of speakers. Dean and Nick will be talking there, as well as Kathy Kressel and myself, Rita Mae Moore, D.K. Prince, who's a psychic. I'm forgetting somebody. I know I am. So forgive me if I didn't say everybody's name. I think Dan Norville and Larry Eisner, the third, are going to be talking as well.
Yeah, Dan was on, or Dan is watching still, I believe. Hey, everyone.
So basically, we got
Victoria's watching. Chuck's watching.
We got a whole day long speakers. I think there's 10 or 11 speakers going on that day. So we got entertainment for everybody. It will be raffle tickets. People will be donating books and so forth. And
oh, nice.
So we'll be having raffles all day long for books and DVDs and T-shirts and all kind of memorabilia. And who knows, there might even be a piece of Stanley's equipment that I'll be putting up.
I would love that. That would be amazing. That would be a good tribute, and
absolutely,
for him, man. Rest in peace, Stanley, or come and talk to us anytime.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much again. I know it was 10 o'clock, not too bad, but we had a lot to cover. And again, this Ovilus III thing, this is the first time I've been hinting at the story, but to deep dive into why it's happening, this is the first time for that. So I appreciate you and your experience and your knowledge of helping me through this process. And of course, the trips to Gettysburg and future trips to Gettysburg. And who knows, maybe to London and maybe to, let's see, should I say Texas? Is Victoria still out there? Maybe that's a possibility too. I'll share that with you. Maybe we could take a trip out to Texas and see some.
Well, I'd love to go out there one year because I'd love to go out to see the plane crash of Jim Croce.
Oh, nice. Wow.
He's in Texas.
There you go. So you still have more on your bucket list, huh?
Oh, yeah. I have more crash sites to investigate. The Leonard Skinner crash site in Mississippi, the Stevie Ray Vaughan helicopter crash in Wisconsin. If I ever get to California, hopefully see John Denver's crash site.
Isn't that in the ocean?
I think it was right on the beach actually, or maybe in Washington or something. He had experimental lighter than aircraft. Lighter than aircraft? Is that a double word there?
I know it was an experimental.
Experimental one. Yeah, exactly.
But
So,
yeah, he was. That was a tragic.
yes.
Well, they all were, of course.
Yeah.
So again, thank you, and good night, everyone. If you want to hang on, Dale, for a moment.
Sure.
And I'll end the live broadcast. Thanks everyone for watching. Stay tuned for next week. It's probably going to be Tuesday nights again, so watch for that. And hopefully Nick will be back on board with me, and we'll do a lot of Dean and Nick banter. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Oh, hey. Wow. Oh, hey everyone, it's Dean from Paranormal Pickers. Oh, I got the preview for the next episode. Oh, yeah. Here, take a peek. Oh.
Yes. That guy, he came over here, it was a complete mess. And he later converted it into a really nice location. When he was here, they weren't yanking people's teeth out anymore. And his name was Dr. James Conroy. That's his name. He was on that show. He's a great guy. I mean, he turned this whole place around to make it a lot better than it was. I think we got stairs downstairs. I think we have chairs down.